Step into any British pub on a Friday night in 1973 and you'd find a menu that no longer exists. Chalked on a blackboard above the bar, written in the publican's careful hand, were dishes that defined a generation. Scampi served in plastic baskets lined with grease-proof paper. Pickled eggs floating in jars the color of weak tea. Steak Diane flambeed at the table by a barman with a thick moustache and a flair for the dramatic. By 1985, most of these had vanished. The breweries consolidated. The frozen wholesalers moved in. The microwave killed the pass. Today, you'd struggle to find a single one of these meals served the way it was meant to be. Tonight, we're counting down 25 forgotten British pub meals from the 1970s that have vanished forever. Pull up a stool, settle in with a half of bitter, and let's begin the countdown with number 25. Number 25, brown Windsor soup. Before pub food meant scampi or chicken Kiev, the menu started with a thick, brown, unidentifiable broth that arrived in a heavy white bowl with a chunk of bread on the saucer. Brown Windsor soup ruled lounge bars across the country, served by landladies who learned the recipe from wartime cookery columns. Mutton or beef bones were simmered for hours with carrots, onions, and a splash of Madeira. If anyone was feeling generous, then thickened with flour until a spoon would almost stand up in it. By 1972, a bowl cost around 15 pence and came with a paper napkin tucked under the rim. The flavor was muddy and faintly meaty, beloved by older drinkers and quietly endured by everyone else. When the prawn cocktail arrived, the soup was tipped out and the pot retired to the loft. Number 24, whitebait with brown bread and butter. Saturday lunchtime in any pub within striking distance of the coast meant a basket of whitebait, those tiny silver fish dredged in seasoned flour and dropped into hot dripping until they crisped into something between a chip and a crisp. Served piled on a plate with a wedge of lemon, brown bread cut thick and buttered to the edges, and a twist of black pepper, they were the kind of starter that men ate standing at the bar with a pint of mild. Whitebait cost about 20 pence a portion in 1974 and came from East Anglia or Cornwall, packed in ice on the morning train. You ate them whole, heads, tails, eyes and all. The crunch was the point. When fish stocks fell and refrigerated lorries replaced the railway, the fresh supply dried up. Frozen whitebait never tasted the same, and the dish slipped quietly off the menu. Number 23rd, pickled eggs from the jar on the bar. Every proper boozer had one. A great glass jar sat on the counter beside the pork scratchings, filled with cloudy malt vinegar and a dozen hard-boiled eggs going slowly grey at the edges. Pickled eggs were the working man's bar snack, costing 5 pence apiece, and they were fished out with a long pair of tongs the landlord kept in a glass of water. The flavour was sharp, eye-watering, and somehow exactly right with a pint of Watney's Red Barrel. Some pubs added beetroot to the jar, turning the eggs a violent pink that startled tourists. Regulars knew which jar had been topped up recently, and which had been sitting since Easter. By the late 1980s, environmental health inspectors began asking awkward questions about temperature control, and the jars vanished one by one. A few country pubs still keep the tradition alive, but the bar top jar is largely a memory. Number 22, crab paste sandwiches. In coastal pubs from Cromer to Padstow, the bar menu in 1973 included a plate of crab paste sandwiches that arrived under a glass dome with a sprig of parsley. Made from the dark meat of brown crabs, mashed with butter, mace, and a spoonful of anchovy essence, the paste was spread thick on white sliced bread, crusts cut off, sliced into triangles. A round cost about 18 pence and came with a pickled onion on the side. The flavor was rich and slightly fishy, the texture smooth as butter. Landladies made the paste themselves on Monday morning, and it lasted the week, kept under muslin in the pantry. As crab prices climbed and food safety regulations tightened, the homemade paste was replaced by tubs of pre-made stuff from the wholesalers, then dropped altogether. Today, you would be lucky to find a single pub serving proper crab paste sandwiches. Number 21st, proper homemade pork scratchings. Long before plastic packets of dusty fragments hung on cardboard displays, every black country pub made its own scratchings behind the bar. The landlord bought pork rind from the local butcher for pennies, scored it, salted it heavily, and roasted it slow until it puffed and crackled into golden shards. They came in small paper bags or piled in a bowl on the counter, still warm, glistening with their own fat. By 1975, a bag cost 6 pence, came with a thick layer of salt at the bottom, and was strong enough to break a tooth if you bit the wrong way. The smell of roasting pork rind drifted out of pub kitchens on a Friday afternoon, drawing in drinkers from streets away. When the breweries standardized everything and pre-packed scratchings flooded the market, the homemade version disappeared almost overnight. The texture and depth of flavor have never been matched since. Number 20, the cheese and onion cob. In Midlands pubs, the lunchtime bar menu was built around the cob. A round, soft white roll split open and filled with thick wedges of crumbly Cheshire or Lancashire cheese and rings of raw onion that made your eyes stream. Wrapped in grease-proof paper and costing about 12 pence in 1972, the cob was eaten standing up with a pint of bitter and a copy of the Express. The onion was the point. Sharp, fierce, unapologetic, it was paired with the salty crumble of proper farmhouse cheese. Some landladies added a smear of Branston pickle or a slice of pickled beetroot. Men ate them in 3 bites and ordered another. When pubs moved to baguettes and paninis in the 1990s, the cob retreated to a handful of stubborn Midlands locals who refused to call it anything else. Outside Birmingham and Nottingham, the cheese and onion cob has all but vanished. Number 19. Welsh rarebit. Not cheese on toast. Welsh rarebit was something altogether more serious, a proper supper dish that pubs across the country served on a Saturday night when the kitchen had closed, but the bar was still open. A thick paste of strong cheddar, English mustard, Worcestershire sauce, a splash of brown ale, and a beaten egg yolk was spread over toasted bread and slid under the grill until it bubbled and browned and threatened to set the kitchen alight. By 1974, a portion cost around 25 pence and arrived on a warm plate with a knife and fork. The flavor was sharp, tangy, deeply savory, with the ale lifting everything to something almost adult. It was the kind of dish drinkers ordered after their 5th pint when they suddenly remembered they hadn't eaten. Frozen ready meals killed it. Today, most pubs serve cheese on toast and call it rarebit. They are not the same thing. Number 18. Morecambe Bay potted shrimp with brown bread. From Morecambe Bay to the saloon bars of London, potted shrimp was the dish of choice for the gentleman at lunch. Tiny pink shrimps set in clarified butter spiced with mace, nutmeg, and a pinch of cayenne, served chilled in a little white ramekin with 2 thick slices of brown bread and a lemon wedge. By 1973, a portion cost about 30 pence and came with a small silver knife to spread the butter across the bread. The shrimps were caught off the Lancashire coast, peeled by hand by women in cottages who could do it in their sleep, and packed into pots that were sold to pubs and hotels across the country. The flavor was delicate, the butter rich and aromatic, the whole thing impossibly refined for a pub. When the peelers retired and machine peeling never quite worked, supply collapsed. Potted shrimp survives only in a handful of seaside establishments. Number 17. Black pudding starter with English mustard. Long before the gastropub revival, Northern pubs served black pudding as a proper sit-down starter. Thick discs of berry or Stornoway pudding were fried in dripping until the edges crisped, and the inside turned soft and yielding. They were then plated with a smear of fierce yellow English mustard and a sprig of watercress. By 1976, a portion cost 22 pence, and it came on a side plate that arrived with the first pint. The flavour was earthy, peppery, faintly metallic, the kind of thing that divided drinkers into camps within seconds. Northern landlords took pride in their pudding supplier, naming the butcher on the chalk menu. Children dared each other to try a slice. When the breweries took over and standardized menus across their estates, regional starters like black pudding were the first to go. Today it appears mostly on breakfast plates. Number 16. Deviled kidneys on fried bread. The pub starter that defined Sunday lunchtime in 1973. Lamb's kidneys were quartered, dusted in seasoned flour, and fried fast in butter with a sauce of mustard, Worcestershire, cayenne, and a splash of sherry. They were then piled onto a slab of fried bread that soaked up every drop of the dark, glossy gravy. A portion cost 28 pence and arrived on a hot plate with a parsley garnish that no one ever ate. The flavour was rich, peppery, and unmistakable, the kidneys tender enough to cut with a fork. Working men ordered them with a half of mild before going home for the proper roast. The dish required a cook who knew exactly when to stop. 30 seconds too long, and the kidneys turned to rubber. As pub kitchens shifted to frozen and microwave-ready foods, deviled kidneys were quietly retired. The skill of cooking them properly went with the older chefs. Number 15. Roll mops and pickled herring. In pubs with any kind of dockside or East End connection, the bar counter in 1974 carried a wooden board of pickled herring and roll mops, fillets of fish rolled around onion and gherkin and skewered with a cocktail stick. They came on a saucer with a slice of dark rye and a dollop of soured cream, costing about 18 pence a portion. The flavour was sharp, vinegary and oily, the fish almost translucent after weeks in the brine. Older drinkers, many of them dockers or merchant seamen, ate them in 2 bites and washed them down with a pint of stout. Some pubs imported the herring from Holland or Germany. The wholesale price was kept artificially low by the bulk trade. When fish quotas tightened in the 1980s and the older clientele moved on, roll mops disappeared from the bar counter. They survive now in supermarket jars, but no one eats them in pubs anymore. Number 14. The proper handmade Scotch egg. Not the cold, dry version sold in plastic from the supermarket fridge. The pub Scotch egg of 1973 was made that morning by the landlady. A hard-boiled egg wrapped in a thick layer of seasoned sausage meat, rolled in golden breadcrumbs and deep-fried in beef dripping until the crust crackled. Served warm on a plate with a pickled onion and a smear of piccalilli, they cost about 20 pence apiece and were the perfect partner to a pint of bitter. The yolk was sometimes still a little soft, the sausage meat seasoned with sage, pepper, and a pinch of nutmeg. Regulars ordered too. The smell of frying sausage and breadcrumbs drifted from the back kitchen and pulled in passers-by. When mass-produced Scotch eggs took over the cold cabinet, the homemade version disappeared. The gastropub revival has brought it back in places, but it costs £8 now, not 20 pence. Number 13. Liver and bacon with onion gravy. It was the Wednesday lunchtime special at thousands of pubs across the country. Slices of lamb's liver were dusted in flour and fried fast in bacon fat, with rashers of streaky bacon and a mound of soft, caramelized onions, then served with a pool of thick gravy and a heap of buttery mash. By 1975, a plate cost 45 pence and came with 2 slices of buttered bread on a side plate. The liver was pink in the middle, tender, slightly sweet from the onions. the bacon crisp at the edges. Older drinkers swore by it as a hangover cure, claiming the iron put them right in time for the afternoon shift. Younger eaters wrinkled their noses at the metallic smell and pushed it round the plate. As tastes shifted and offal fell out of fashion, liver and bacon disappeared from the chalkboard. A few country pubs still serve it, but the everyday lunchtime tradition has gone. Number 12. Faggots and peas. The Black Country. Answer to the pub lunch question: faggots were balls of minced pig's liver, heart and belly, mixed with breadcrumbs, onion and sage, wrapped in caul fat and baked until the surface turned dark and crisp. Served with a ladle of thick onion gravy and a mound of mushy peas, the plate arrived steaming hot for about 35 pence in 1974. The flavor was rich, herby and deeply savoury, the caul fat adding a faint sweetness that lifted the whole dish. Faggots came from the local butcher, often delivered in a brown paper parcel, still warm from the oven. Children licked the gravy off their plates. Fathers ordered 2 with extra peas. When the small butchers closed and the wholesale trade collapsed, faggots became almost impossible to find. A few Midland pubs still serve them, but the tradition that once anchored working-class lunch has all but disappeared. Number 11. Beef olives. Despite the name, there were no olives involved. Beef olives were thin slices of topside rolled around a stuffing of breadcrumbs, onion, suet, and herbs, tied with string, browned in dripping, and braised slowly in a thick brown gravy until the meat fell apart at the touch of a fork. A plate cost about 50 pence in 1976 and came with mashed potatoes and a heap of carrots. The flavor was rich and deeply beefy, the stuffing soaking up all the gravy from the long, slow cook. Beef olives were the dish for a pub that wanted to seem a bit more refined, the kind of place with red velvet banquettes and a separate dining room off the lounge. Burney Inns served a version that became famous across the country. When the chain collapsed in the 1990s and slow-cooked food gave way to grilled steaks, beef olives quietly vanished from the menu. Number 10. Stuffed lamb's hearts. A dish that required a publican who knew their butcher and a cook who knew their oven. Lamb's hearts were trimmed and washed thoroughly, then stuffed with a mixture of breadcrumbs, onion, sage, and sausage meat, then braised in a heavy casserole with stock, carrots, and a splash of red wine for 3 hours until the meat turned dark and yielding. By 1973, a portion cost about 38 pence and came with mashed potato and a green vegetable. The flavor was strong, almost gamey, the texture dense but tender. Older drinkers ordered them with relish, claiming there was nothing better on a cold winter's night. Children, predictably, refused them on sight. The labor involved in trimming and stuffing the hearts proved too much for pub kitchens shifting to ready meals, and the dish faded fast. By the late 1980s, stuffed hearts had become a rarity, and today they survive only in nostalgic memory. Number 9. The prawn cocktail. The starter that defined the 1970s pub menu like no other dish. Frozen prawns were defrosted in cold water, drained, and tossed in a sauce of mayonnaise, tomato ketchup, brandy, and a few drops of Tabasco. Then they were piled into a sundae glass on a bed of shredded iceberg lettuce, dusted with paprika, and finished with a lemon wedge clipped to the rim. By 1974, a prawn cocktail cost about 30 pence, and it was the most ordered starter at Burney Inns nationwide. The sauce was pink, creamy, and slightly sweet. The prawns were sometimes too small and sometimes too icy in the middle. The lettuce was often already wilting by the time it reached the table. It was the height of sophistication for a young couple on a Saturday night. When tastes shifted in the 1990s and prawn cocktail became shorthand for naff, the dish was quietly pulled from menus. The Sunday glasses went to charity shops. Number 8. The mixed grill. The plate that defined Saturday lunch for a generation of British men. A lamb chop, a piece of rump steak, a kidney, a slice of liver, a sausage, a rasher of bacon, a tomato halved and grilled, a flat mushroom, and a fried egg, all arranged on an oval plate with a mound of chips and a sprig of watercress. By 1975, a mixed grill cost about 75 pence and came with bread and butter on the side. The plate was so heavy, the waitress had to use both hands. The flavor was overwhelming, every meat fighting the next, the egg yolk running across the lot. Working men in shirt sleeves ate the whole thing in 20 minutes and ordered apple pie. The mixed grill required a chef who could time 8 different proteins to land hot together, a skill that disappeared along with the chefs. Today, a few traditional pubs still serve a version, but it lacks the variety and the weight of the original. Number 7. Gammon and pineapple. The plate that proved the British pub had embraced the exotic, even if the exotic came from a tin. A thick gammon steak was grilled until the edges caught and the fat crisped, then topped with a ring of tinned pineapple and a glace cherry stuck in the middle, served with chips and a heap of garden peas. By 1973, a plate cost about 55 pence at most lounge bars and was considered the height of continental flair. The flavor was salty and sweet at once, the pineapple juice running across the gammon and pooling in the peas. Children loved the cherry. Adults debated whether the pineapple ruined the meat or made it. Burney Inns sold thousands a week. When pub menus shifted to grilled chicken and pasta in the 1990s, gammon and pineapple was branded old-fashioned and quietly removed. It survives now mostly as a punchline. Number 6. Chicken in a basket. The dish that revolutionized pub food in 1971 and was finished by 1985. Pieces of chicken, usually a quarter bird, were dropped into a deep fryer in seasoned batter, then served in a small wicker basket lined with grease-proof paper, with a heap of chips and a wedge of lemon. By 1973, a basket cost about 60 pence and came with a paper napkin and a wooden cocktail stick. The chicken was crisp on the outside and steaming inside, the chips fat and golden, the whole thing eaten with the fingers while leaning on the bar. Chicken in a basket meant a night out without the formality of a tablecloth. Cabaret pubs across the country served thousands a week. As tastes moved toward grilled and roast options, and the basket itself came to seem dated, the dish slipped off the menu. The wicker baskets went to jumble sales. Today, no proper pub serves chicken in a basket. Number 5. Scampi in a basket. It was the cousin of chicken in a basket, and arguably the more iconic. Breaded scampi tails, deep-fried until golden, served in the same wicker basket with the same chips and the same wedge of lemon, plus a small pot of tartar sauce on the side. The scampi was sweet, tender and slightly elastic, the batter shattering at the first bite. By 1974, a basket cost about 70 pence and was the most ordered hot dish in pubs from Brighton to Aberdeen. It came from frozen suppliers in industrial quantities. The langoustine meat was trawled from the North Sea and processed in factories on the East Coast. The dish required no cooking skill beyond knowing when to lift the basket from the fryer. When the langoustine fishery collapsed and frozen suppliers raised prices, scampi became an expensive proposition for the kind of pub that had built its menu around cheap convenience. The wicker baskets went the way of the chickens. Number 4. Steak Diane. Flambeed at the table. The theatrical centerpiece of the steakhouse pub, served by a barman who had practiced his flourish in front of the bedroom mirror. A thin sirloin steak was pounded flat, fried in butter, then deglazed at the table with brandy and Worcestershire sauce, set alight with a long match, and finished with cream and chopped parsley. By 1974, a steak Diane at a Burney Inn cost about £1.20 and came with chips, peas, and a half bottle of Matthias Rose. The flames leapt almost to the ceiling. Couples on dates watched in awe. The flavor was rich and slightly sweet, the cream sauce mopping up the steak juices, the brandy still hot on the tongue. Health and safety regulations tightened in the 1980s, insurance premiums rose, and tableside flambe became too risky for chain pubs. The dish died with the trolley it was cooked on. Number 3. Steak and kidney pudding in a basin. Not the pie, the pudding. A suet pastry case is lined into a pudding basin filled with cubes of beef and ox kidney in dark gravy, sealed with a suet lid, and steamed for 4 hours until the pastry turned glossy and the filling bubbled through. By 1973, a single-serving pudding cost about 40 pence in country pubs and arrived at the table still in its basin, wrapped in a white cloth knotted at the top. The waitress turned it out onto the plate at your table, and the smell of beef and kidney and steamed suet filled the room. The pastry was soft and rich, the filling dark and intensely savoury, the kidney lending an iron tang that lifted the beef. It was the dish that rewarded the kitchen that planned ahead. As pub kitchens moved to bought-in frozen pies, the steamed pudding disappeared. A handful of traditional pubs still serve it, but the everyday tradition has gone. Number 2. Black Forest Gâteau. The dessert that announced you were in a proper lounge bar with ideas above its station. Layers of chocolate sponge soaked in kirsch, filled with tinned black cherries and clouds of whipped cream, finished with chocolate shavings curled from a block with a vegetable peeler. By 1974, a slice cost about 25 pence and arrived on a plate lined with a doily with a single cherry on top. The cake came frozen from a wholesaler in Birmingham, defrosted slowly in the back kitchen, and sliced with a knife dipped in hot water. The flavor was sweet, boozy, and faintly artificial. The cream collapsed into the sponge by the time the second slice was cut. Couples on a Saturday night shared one with 2 spoons. As tastes moved towards sticky toffee pudding and chocolate fondant, the gâteau came to symbolize everything that was wrong with British food in the 1970s. By 1990, it had vanished almost entirely from pub menus. And finally, in first place, the proper ploughman's lunch, not the sad supermarket version. The 1973 ploughman's was a plate the size of a serving platter, piled with a fat wedge of farmhouse cheddar or Stilton, a hunk of crusty bread torn from a fresh loaf, a pickled onion the size of a golf ball, a slice of pork pie, a few sticks of celery and a glass of water, a wedge of apple, a slab of butter wrapped in greaseproof, and a dollop of fierce Branston pickle that stained everything brown. A ploughman's cost about 50 pence at a country pub and was the lunch of choice for shooting parties, ramblers, and anyone who had worked up an appetite in the morning. The cheese was strong enough to bring tears to the eyes. The pickle was sharp and dark and unapologetic. The bread came from the village bakery, delivered that morning. The butter was salted and unrefrigerated, soft enough to spread without breaking the crust. Diaries from the period speak of 2-hour lunches in the saloon bar, the plate cleared down to a smear of pickle and a few crumbs of cheese. Children watched fathers carve great wedges of Stilton with a folding knife. Walkers refueled before tackling the second half of a hill. By the 1990s, the dish had been hollowed out by every pub trying to cut costs. The cheddar grew younger and milder, the bread came pre-sliced, the pickle came in tiny plastic tubs, and the apple disappeared. Today, a ploughman's in most pubs is a sandwich plate with delusions. The proper version, with its weight and its variety and its quiet celebration of the British larder, has all but vanished. Across all 25 entries, from the muddy bowl of brown Windsor that opened our list to the magnificent ploughman's at the very top, These forgotten pub meals tell a story that goes far beyond food. They are the taste of a Britain that ate where it drank, where the menu was chalked by hand and the cook was the landlady, where the wicker basket was as good as a china plate, and where every region had its own pride on the chalkboard. Some dishes, like deviled kidneys and stuffed hearts, stand out as the boldest reminders of an era when offal was ordinary and nothing was too strange for a Saturday lunch. Others, like scampi in a basket and Black Forest gâteau, mark the brief, glorious moment when the British pub thought it had become continental. The common thread is the slow surrender to convenience, to frozen suppliers, to brewery accountants, and to a national palate that quietly forgot what it had lost. The pub menu of 1973 was eccentric, generous, sometimes terrible, but it belonged to us. Which of these would you bring back? Let me know in the comments.